The next bit on the programme is called the Soapbox, which is usually a lot of interest and a lot of fun. And I'm going to hand over to the Chief Executive, Paul Devlin, who's going to run that.
Okay, can people hear me? Right, now it gets serious. Soapbox time. So for those who are new, and indeed for those who have been previously, the Soapbox is an opportunity for us to hear from PPG people who've flagged that they've got something that they want to say. And the rules are as follows. First off, you wait for the roving microphone that will get to you. And then you've got a maximum of 90 seconds. And if you get to that 90 seconds, you get gonged off. And what I'd like to do is try and get through as many as we can in the next 15 minutes. That's the slot we've got. So the quicker you are, the more that we can get through. And to say to the people who filled out their little form, hopefully we'll get through you all as long as people move quickly. So first up, Peter Pinfield. Peter is there. Let's just wait for the microphone, Peter. And your time starts now.
Over the next 12 months, we as patients want to see a shift of the balance of power and engagement which we feel are not being involved in properly. We are thoroughly sick of having things done to us and not with us, and that has to change. We call on N.A.P.P, we call on politicians, we call on anybody that can influence the journey we're going on in NHS to do something about that. I'll leave you with kind of 3 things that are important to me that makes it work for us in Worcestershire. Firstly, know your rights. We actually have got some rights in this country, and we should be insisting on the people who make decisions that those rights are honoured. Know your networks. You can't do anything on your own. I can't. You have to use your networks and work on those in a very positive way. And get involved. Do not let any opportunity go amiss that asks for the opinion and influence of patients. We're important, and the NHS belongs to us.
What a textbook example of how to use Soapbox time. In a minute, thank you very much. And great topic as well. Next up is Doug Miles. Doug, so again in the middle there.
Here we are. Thank you.
And
Thanks very much. Quite a different scale of comment, more immediate. We all know the problems that TSB have been having with their online banking system. Just want to flag up what an absolute shambles the EMIS system is at the moment. for online patient records, our people have been locked out, can't get hold of records. A consequence of this is, of course, it heavily overloads the telephone system of the surgery. It may be a short-term problem, but any pressure that N.A.P. could bring would certainly be appreciated by my PPG, and I'm sure by many here. Thank you.
That's a great challenge, Doug, and there are some practice managers in the room who I'm sure would have been really pleased to hear that challenge as well. So if we go to our next one, Syed Ahmed. Syed?
Over here.
Okay.
I think I better get up, otherwise nobody will see me. But I hope you remember this. Hey. Great.
Theatrics with the Soapbox, excellent. Off you go.
I'm rather small, so everybody can remember me by my hat. Good afternoon. I'm Syed Nadeem Ahmed from the Family Medical Centre, CCG, in East Nottingham. I have to admit that the issue which I'm going to draw attention to, I obtained information from a CCG outside my catchment area. Not from Nottingham CCG, not from Nottingham City CCG. It's like trying to get blood out of a stone. However, I noted since the passing of GP expenditure bills had been passed from NHS England to the CCGs, there's been a discrepancy from the previous costing they were paying, i.e. X pound level, and then instead of paying Y pound level for their bill, the primary medical services. And what I found is that they've been cutbacks because X minus Z equals Y. This means that various teams within the city of Nottingham have had cutbacks to staff, for example, Falls and Blood team, Bones team. This may affect the quality of care and continuity of care. However, I still want to talk positively, briefly, about GP Plus services, and this is very, very useful because I've been trying to encourage take-up of after-hour GP Plus services where there's a continuity of care as against urgent care where they only look at the here and now.
Oh, you nearly had me on the gong. Well done, Syed, thank you. Next up is Joan Lugston. Joan at the back there.
I've been...
Okay.
Joan Lugston from Wellingborough Albany House Medical Centre. I've been trying to acquire the prescription passports, the medication passports now for 2 years, and I haven't been able to get them from where they were to be got. And I've got leaflets, and it says you can get them from the chemist. So I've been around all my local chemists, and they don't know what I'm talking about. So can somebody help me? Thank you. Okay.
So there's a connection you can make there, Joan,
Thank
and
you.
hopefully that will give you an answer. Thank you. Next up, Anthea Makepeace.
Thank you. I would like to propose one umbrella organisation for all healthcare voluntary organisations. The Prison and Probation Service has a similar group, and there are 350,000 service users, 260,000 on probation and 80,000 in custody, which sort of is the same sort of ratio as GP to acute services. And the Clinks provides such an organisation, and even for such a small group, they have 350 voluntary organisations working with them, and they support them and promote them at government level. We need such a thing here. They also run very good restaurants, which also help rehabilitate offenders. Thank you.
Great, thank you. As ever, we're getting loads of good ideas, and there's lots that we can think about here. Jeff Barr, I think. Jeff? Yeah. Yep.
Right, I'm proposing that we should support the NHS reinstatement bill proposed by Alison Pollock. We know the NHS is a chaotic mess at present. We know it's short of money. We also know that there's a crisis of fragmentation. I said to somebody the other day, they said to me, I can't get my head around all these acronyms. I said, don't bother, as soon as you do, they'll change them all. It's time to get it simple again. A nice linear structure with the Secretary of the State at the top actually responsible for the NHS and not dodging it and hiding it. Add into that patient participation. You will bring down transaction costs, you will bring down the legal costs of these various companies suing the NHS because they're being refused the chance to take money out and dodge tax with the profits that they make. It's time for a radical change. Eleanor Smith MP is proposing this bill yet again on the 11th of July, and I hope that people lobby their MPs to tell them to back her. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Doing great on our timings. Kathy Trevaldwyn.
Right, Kathy Trevaldwyn. I joined the Southern Lodge Surgery, Chelmsford. I joined the PPG 12 months ago. I became chair in January. We had the result of our CQC inspection on May the 14th. I'll show you what that looks like, being called inadequate and being on special measures, right? Now I know what we should have done. We should have gone to the CQC and said what our problems are much, much earlier. We as a PPG could have spoken. Now I've only learnt that today, And it was an excellent lecture we had. Thank you.
Thank you. And whilst we know that there are many in the room who are part of good and outstanding practices, there are also some real challenges for us as PPGs if our practices are in special measures. Okay, thank you. Move on to John Dick. John, microphone coming to you.
Thanks, Chair. As we all get our MOT, well, most of us do, when we're 60, there should be 3 parts of the MOT that should be included. That is eyesight, hearing and dentistry, which are not included, and it's up to yourself to go to the optician if you need your eyes tested, to the dentist if you need dentistry, and to the audiologist, once you've been referred by your doctor, to go for audiology for hearing. These 3 things are not included directly into your medical records. And when we're looking more closely at frailty in particular, and your life expectancy, your ongoing, if you like, your pathway through life, that should be monitored on a yearly basis, and they can pick up anything that they may find within that year, and it should also be on your birthday or very close to it. So therefore you will not forget to go for your examination. Thank you.
Fantastic. And then if we can go to Jane Ellis. Microphone on its way to you, Jane.
I'd like to talk to you about what's happening in our PPG, but we know now that it's happening across our county. Over the last year or so, we've had a tremendous problem getting repeat prescriptions and getting medications. Many of them have been out of stock for more than 2 weeks. We now know from the local medical committee that there are 200 medications which may have to be substituted because of inadequate supplies. We have now written to our MP about this to ask him to refer it to the Secretary of State, and I'd like to share this with you because I know it's not just our problem. We know from our Doctors' Federation that it's happening across the country, and it's a serious matter. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And then, last but not least, Dr. Lisa Risti. Apologies for my pronunciation if that's not good.
Hi, I'm here as a spy from University of Manchester, so I'm doing some research about GP federations, networks, organisations. So as part of that, I'm very fortunate to go and meet with lots of PPGs, observe some of their meetings and find out what GP networks are doing to help support primary care. So I would ask you all as PPG members to find out what's happening in your locality. You're all having your meetings, and it'd be really good if you were all knowledgeable about what's going on. You're not always knowing the right questions to ask. I've got some questionnaires that are out on the table outside, so if anybody is from a PPG who have been involved in development of a federation, I'd be really grateful if any of you could spare some time to leave your details so I can speak to you, because most people I speak to have no knowledge of what's going on at all. And it's such a shame because patients have got so much to offer. They quite often see when the systems are crumbling where things can be improved much more than the practice can themselves as staff. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Fantastic. I think, I don't know whether people are just getting slicker on their presentations. I didn't get to bang the gong once. Oh, yes, I did. Great. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for running that, Paul. I think it's the first time that I've ever seen a soapbox go right through without the gong being rung once, so the audience is getting more sophisticated and more punchy. Now we move on to welcome our sponsor from the General Medical Council, who we greatly value, and he's now going to say a few words. He's not...
Thank you, Sir Dennis. Hello, everybody. Very pleased to see you. I've been around all day and had the opportunity to speak to a few of you, and it's been I hope you've been enjoying your day as much as I have. It's been a very, very exciting day. On behalf of the GMC, I'd like to say that we're delighted to support N.A.P.P's annual conference. This is the second year in doing so, and long may it continue. N.A.P.P is an organisation that continues to grow from strength to strength, and of course PPGs play such an important role in safeguarding the quality of primary care services. I sat in on a couple of the workshops today, and heard firsthand some of the very innovative programs and projects that PPGs are getting off the ground. And obviously in a couple of minutes' time, we're going to be celebrating one of those with the award of the Corkle Award. So there's some really interesting stuff going on. On a personal note, today takes me back to my previous life in the NHS, where I worked in West Sussex for getting on for about 12 years. I had the role there as a patient engagement manager in primary care, now a CCG, and I was delighted that I bumped into some people that I used to work with in PPGs who are here today. So it was very nice to catch up with some old friends. Briefly, I'd like to tell you about GMC's role, just in case not everybody is aware of what we do, and there's no reason why you should be. And then obviously I'd like to tell you how N.A.P.P and the GMC have been working together in partnership, and how this partnership work is already producing some very positive outcomes for the GMC. As you can see on the screen, I'm what's known as a regional liaison advisor. So I work on the ground for the GMC. This team was set up about 6 years ago to enable the GMC to have a regional presence, if you like. So I'm based in Brighton, my hometown, and I operate along the sort of southeast coast area, Kent, Surrey, Sussex, Hampshire, and the Isle of Wight. So if any of your PPGs are based there, hopefully you might see me at some stage in the future. So what does the GMC do? What's our primary purpose in the GMC? Who thinks we're here to protect patients? Who thinks we're here to protect doctors? Who wishes there was a C option? Well, there isn't one. We're a patient protection organisation. We're set up under fairly archaic sort of legal system. Sadly, it's the Medical Act. We've been around since 1858 in the GMC. Obviously, I've not been around in the GMC since 1858. But we're a long-established regulator, and in essence, we regulate all of the doctors working in the UK, both in private independent sector and the NHS, in primary care, in the acute sector, in all sectors. So we have a role to promote good medical practice and ensuring that the quality of care that patients receive is of appropriate standards and indeed of safe standards. This is our main functions, if you like. We have an important part to play in the education of medical students in the UK. Some 7,500 medical students graduating every year from the UK-based medical schools. We also have an important part to play in the continuing education of postgraduate doctors. So at any one time in the UK, there's somewhere in the region of 60,000 doctors in training, still going through their postgraduate education until they get to the consultant level. So it's a big responsibility and a big piece of work that we're involved in. Obviously, we maintain the register of doctors working in the UK. 237,000 doctors with a licence to practice in the UK are all on our register. So my word of warning, I suppose, is if you can go on our register. It's available on the GMC website. If you look for your doctor and your doctor's not on our register, you need to give us a ring quite quickly. Okay. Revalidation is a relatively new area in medical practice. It's a cyclical process, whereby every 5 years doctors go through a process to revalidate, which in essence is ensuring that they are up to speed, their skills are up to date, and they're still sufficient standards to carry on practicing. So it's a gentleman earlier mentioned a bit of an MOT test. I suppose it's a little bit of an MOT test for a doctor's clinical skills and good medical practice. At the bottom, it's upside down. Fitness to practice, which is in essence is the sort of term that we use if we have to investigate a doctor who hasn't been meeting the appropriate standards, and it's certainly not been working to GMC guidance. The numbers we investigate are decreasing. Vast majority of doctors do an absolutely marvellous job and wouldn't come anywhere near the GMC investigation process, so those numbers are getting smaller and smaller every year. And at the core, centre to everything we do is the guidance that we produce, which sets the standards for all of those 237,000 doctors working in the UK. And here's a little flavour of some of those the standards, the guidance that we produce. These are the ethical standards that doctors need to work to. So issues around how do we get valid consent from patients? How do we ensure that we keep patient information confidential? When can information be disclosed without patients' consent in the public interest? All of those quite challenging ethical dilemmas that doctors face on a daily basis. And we set the standards and write the guidance in accordance to that. So that's the GMC's role. Important part of the role and the job that we do is to maintain public trust in the medical profession. This on the screen here, this is what's known as public perception surveying. It's commissioned by the government every other year or so. In essence, what happens, there's lots of questions going out and asking the public. One of the questions that are asked of the public is, would you trust this profession to tell the truth? I've never personally been asked that question by any researcher, but I'm sure they're very open and candid and they do the work properly. Time and time again, doctors come out on top in terms of the professions that people will trust to tell the truth, apart from last year. So who do we think came out on top last year? Estate agents? Ooh, hang on. Are you an estate agent? Nurses. Nurses. So we can see 94, we're in on 90%, so most industries would give their right arms to have that level of trust in their profession, in their areas of work. And doctors, and I'm sure Sir Dennis and others would agree, doctors have a very important part to play in maintaining those levels of trust, because if patients don't trust their doctors, that can be very harmful. Patients may not go and see their doctor in the first place. They may not pay attention to what the doctor's telling them. They may not give the doctor the information they need to make that decision. So it's very important that we maintain those levels of trust. So who's at the bottom of our list? Now we get estate agents. These are genuine figures. I have no idea why professional footballers are in there, but they are. So you can see the disparity in how trusted doctors are in our community, and it's very, very important that those levels of trust are maintained. The GMC, obviously our primary focus is working with doctors, but obviously we also work with patients and provide information for patients and support for patients. We engage with patients in various ways at a strategic, sort of high level, if you like. The GMC, we've been organising meetings with national patient group representatives, coming along to talk to senior managers in the GMC. Indeed, our Chief Executive, Charlie Massey, goes along to those meetings, and Patricia and Paul have also come along to those meetings as well. So we're listening to the patient voice at the high level within the GMC, and hoping that will inform the work that we do. Well, not hoping, but certainly it will inform the work that we do. I think it's fair to say that this is an ongoing piece of work, this initiative, and we need to do a little bit more work to increase the efficacy of those meetings, but we're moving in the right direction. On the grassroots, myself and my colleagues, the job that we do in our regions, we engage with patient groups in our different geographies. We go talk to patient groups. Certainly, PPGs are included in that piece of work. Because PPGs, you're an invaluable source of intelligence about what's happening on the ground in primary care services. You identify trends, you identify challenges and issues that need to be aired and need to be voiced. Myself and my colleagues, we are very thankful and to speak to patient groups like yourselves to gather that intelligence, because we use that to inform the work that the GMC does. and we can better focus our resources, better focus the work that we can do in terms of addressing some of the issues that you've helped us identify. And we're also doing work around getting more information out to patients. We've just released what we call an electronic patients bulletin that goes out via email. If N.A.P.P haven't already been made aware of this, I'll ensure that the next editions are sent to Paul and his colleagues, and that can be disseminated down to the grassroots. You can see on the screen behind me, this is a slide from the GMC's website. Gives you a flavour of this type of information we're putting on there, supporting patients, so not directed at doctors, but supporting patients. This particular element of the website gives patients information about how they might wish to complain about their doctor. They might wish to raise a concern with the GMC about a doctor they've had experience of. And as the regulator, we're legally bound to proceed with an investigation about a doctor if that is brought to our attention. So there's information, and that can be quite a tricky and challenging journey for a patient to get involved in. So we're developing the help that we can give patients. For example, we now have what's known as patient liaison service. So if a complaint has come into the GMC and it's meeting our thresholds for investigation, so it's of a very serious nature, then our patient liaison service will agree to meet with the patient, to walk them through the process, to tell them exactly what's going to happen, what's expected of them, what the GMC will be doing with that complaint. And those patient meetings, as we call them, are proving to be very, very successful. So we're developing the work that we do in supporting patients, certainly when they're coming to the GMC with the concerns that they've raised. We're also doing a lot more work, as I mentioned at the beginning, with N.A.P.P. I'm very, very pleased to be doing so. What you can see on the screen there is a result of some work that we've done quite recently with N.A.P.P. N.A.P.P. we're helping the GMC produce some user-friendly information, if I can put it in that way, about quite a complex issue, which is revalidation. We realised through the research that we'd done previously that the messages about how a doctor revalidates and what it's all about, we're not really getting out to the public, and the levels of understanding weren't as high as we'd like them to be. So we worked with N.A.P.P. through the N.A.P.P. group of 100, and in essence, the feedback that we got from the group of 100 has informed the information that we now have on our website about revalidation. So it's a really, really useful piece of work. All of the colleagues that I've spoken to in the GMC about the work we're doing with N.A.P.P. and certainly and the N.A.P.P. 100 group have been their comments have been overwhelmingly supportive and positive. And I think we've started on a good relationship now, and certainly GMC are very keen to develop that relationship in the future and do far more work with N.A.P.P. Just to round off, we've also been engaging in your PPG Awareness Week. We've been putting a few tweets out ourselves, again reminding patients about the work we're doing jointly with N.A.P.P. And the products of that really positive endeavour. So we continue to do so, and as I say, I hope we continue to do a lot more of it in the future. Okay, there's some contact details for the GMC if you wish to do so. I think we're going to move on to the Corkle Awards.